Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Say Report. I'm your host, Devon Decker, and joining me, as always, the Poobah of Frasier, Sejan Sarwick. How you doing, Sejan?
I'm doing good, Dev. It's we are getting into the scary times, and right now I'm feeling some scary stuff in my stomach because of your task this week. But we'll get there. So if you hear any scary monster noises, it's probably my digestive system trying to figure out what the hell it's supposed to do with this.
Well, if you want to get scary, you want to get scared, you want to get nuts. I had to eat my dinner at the desk today in the studio. I don't recommend that. That is not something. Do as I say, not as I do. Don't eat at your studio desk.
No, I don't want to like completely go behind the curtain and shit like that, but it is nowhere near dinner time. What do you mean eat dinner at your desk today?
Well, yeah, your dinner is lunch and lunch is dinner and dinner is supper.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure that we weren't on one of those like 36-hour days again for Devon. Because
no,
we've got a few of those episodes, and I don't know if we can do one right now.
That's fair. No, we're actually recording later than usual. But what I did want to say is, so I drove up to Black Falcon this morning to drop my parents off for a trip that they're going on, and I got to drive in the carpool lane, which is always fun, right? HOV, baby, for life. But we were recording later today because of the fact they had to drive into Boston, and we hit a little bit of traffic. So I got into the house half an hour, not even 25 minutes before I was supposed to record. So I wanted to take a shower and wash Boston off of me.
I was going to say wash the grime of Boston away. Did you even get out of the car? You just drove through, but you were still just like, ugh.
I had to get out at the terminal to help them with their bags.
Oh,
so and also to go from. Here's the crazy thing, right? I am a 37-year-old man. My mother will still not let me drive if she is in the car. So I also had to get out of the car and brave Boston for those brief 15 seconds to go from back seat to driver's seat.
To do the good old-fashioned fire drill? Yeah, nice.
So, I mean, I needed a shower. But on the way home, we also picked up Chipotle, because are you aware of Chipotlane? This is already gone.
Oh, okay. You get really fucking threw me for a second, because I was going to be like, I almost wanted to go with you on this bit of no, I'd never heard of Chipotle before, but okay.
Chipotle.
I've never heard of Chipotlane.
Chipotlane Chipotle is very much a restaurant that you go inside of in order to construct your meal. But because of the pandemic, what they did is they added a bunch of drive-through windows, or they might have had them before.
What's the term? Quick service restaurant? Like, it's not a fast food restaurant.
Yeah, it's not fast food. Yeah, I think it's a quick service is the term.
Quick service, or yeah. But I mean, all cards on the table for anybody that isn't aware of this. Chipotle is also just an arm of McDonald's. What it is it's basically their kind of take on the Tex-Mex, and to cover more bases than one, so that they can kind of hit all the check marks. It is a little bit more sit down than you would expect than a McDonald's, right? Like on the sliding scale of restaurants, right? So like that's the quality for anybody out there that has never had Chipotle.
I remember the first time I went into a Chipotle, it was with Rish Ferry and J-Bro, and I looked at him like, oh, so it's just Subway, but I'm making a burrito instead of a sandwich. And they were like so upset that like that's how I summed it up. But that's what Chipotle is. It's Tex-Mex Subway.
My issue with that is that Subway is not the one that came up with the Henry Ford sandwich making process line, right? Like that is cafeteria style 101, and that's what you're talking about.
Right.
You're talking about cafeteria style, where you go down the line and pick what you want. And you say they perfected it, but the truth is IKEA perfected it. If you want that true cafeteria experience as a 35-year-old, but want it done like in a way that you feel like, oh, this is efficient. This is why this exists. Go to any IKEA and get yourself some Swedish meatballs from the lunchroom. Yeah.
I mean,
Chipotle.
I don't know. Subway was worth $1 billion in the '90s, so like it's hard not to.
Right, but you're not wrong. They're using the same style of service for sure.
Yeah. And at the time, the only like examples I had was the sandwich line in the high school cafeteria, which I never went down. Those sandwiches always looked so disgusting to me. Whenever I had a friend like, I went through the sandwich line. I'm like, That does not look good at all. I'm
Dev,
sorry.
I think your privilege might be showing here. I don't know if I ever went to a school that had a sandwich specific line.
Oh, well,
Basically, every school I ever went to, you got two options to choose from, or a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. And the peanut butter and jelly sandwiches were all made on a Monday. So if you were getting that at the end of the week, you were doing yourself a disservice.
You were pre-gaming for that night. Let's be honest. You eat a fermented peanut butter and jelly sandwich at Friday lunchtime. I mean, you're rolling right into the weekend.
That jelly just turns to wine. But the other big place that you would encounter this is any Chinese food restaurant in a mall.
Yeah, that's true. That's a very good point. But for me, I mean, yeah, maybe my privilege is shown, but Coventry High School, we had so many students there that the lunchroom was like a mini food court. And there was pizza and French fries on the left, the hot meal options that you were talking about, and then a sandwich line over to that. And it was like going through Subway, but the sandwiches were like, they were always just a little too shiny, is the way that I would describe it. And also, like, a little too lettucey. Like, you went real lettuce heavy on this ham and cheese sandwich.
Yeah, this ham and cheese famously does not contain lettuce.
Yeah. It would,
yet there seems to be quite a bit of it.
Yeah. And then, that was my freshman year. By the time I was a senior, the amount of students who were there was so grand. They had built a second cafeteria across the hall from the original cafeteria, and that also had additional options. I mean, that's what happens when you have like 5,000 students.
You also went to a high school that had like a full-fledged like theater like class and wing too, right?
I mean, you say no. They did not. We had a theater department that somehow won awards despite the fact that we were working on equipment that was 60 years old at the time.
Yeah, but you seem to be missing the beat here where you were the ones that had equipment. You know what we had? We had English teachers. All of our theater was taught after school by an English teacher that didn't really want to be there.
All right, yeah, that's true. We had a English teacher who dedicated himself to the theater. But I mean, auditorium and the things that we had to do there. I remember when I became the guy in charge back there, and I'm just like, well, I need to fix everything that's broken. And they're like, good luck. And one of the reasons they said good luck was all of the dimmers, by the way, are what make lights go brighter or lower. And theater, like, kind of relies on them for theatrical lighting. I don't know how much people know about technical theater on this show that is pretty much produced by two technical theater guys. I don't...
Yeah, no, I mean, I think most people know what a dimmer is because a lot of people probably
because they have them in their house, right?
But just imagine that, you know, in a theater with 100 lights, you need 100 of those.
Yeah, and those dimmers tend to be the size of about a mini PC case. Like,
well,
they're not
because they house but they.
Right,
because they haven't figured out how to make this smaller. It's because they house hundreds of dimming capabilities in themselves, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
So that's all stuff to know. And when I got there, they're like, yeah, 5 of these dimmers are dead. And I looked at them and I'm like, well, they're not dead. They just have the fuses blown. We should be able to get replacement fuses or already have replacement fuses. So let me check. So there were no replacement fuses in the school. We have gotten so far away from where this started. I love it. I love recording on the afternoon because I've been going since 5 this morning on something I can't talk about. But yeah, so I went and I called the dimmer company and they're like, oh, you have those old ones? We have a bunch of fuses that we just want to throw away. If you can get here before Friday, you can have all of them. So then I didn't have a car in high school. We talked about this a couple of weeks ago. Found somebody who was willing to drive me up to Framingham, Massachusetts. Is that where it is? Is that Framingham? No. Yeah.
There's like the middle of nowhere though, where you have to go like out into like the woodsy area of Massachusetts, and then for some reason there's a fuck ton of feeder supply companies out there.
Yeah, probably because like it's just these are warehouses and we can just take them over. Yeah, so it was Framingham. I'm thinking of Fitchburg, but like that was next to where I grew up, and they're all tied to the kids. So what are you gonna do? So yeah, I had to go to Framingham after school, right? Because that's the whole thing. So I got there just as they were closing at 6:00, and I'm like, "Hi, I'm Devon Decker. I'm here about the fuse." And they're like, "Yeah, they're all in this box for you. Giant box, just full of fuses." And I'm the reason that Coventry High School had working dimmers until I stopped working with them, because I stayed on as their auditorium consultant. And I guess like that's the thing that you're talking about is that like I doubt your auditorium had a guy who actually knew what they were doing.
Weirdly, we did have a guy. It was the head of maintenance who was the only one that knew how that system worked, and we're not going to get too deep into that.
Yeah,
that conversation, because then there's going to be like family secrets out there. I don't need that.
No, that's fine. But it was that was the thing that I did.
But that was like a 65-year-old man. That was not you.
Yeah, that was not an 18-year-old kid who was on contract to his high school once he turned 18. Because they're like, there's liability and stuff. And I'm like, I'll sign a contract if you agree to pay me. And like, it wasn't a lot of money, but I mean, I got a bit of a stipend to be on call for the auditorium. So like, that's a thing that happened to me. And I guess you're right. I just cannot believe, like, all the schools that went to, did you ever take part in like the regional theater competitions?
Not until college.
Okay, yeah. So we were always a part of the Rhode Island theater thing. Like, there were 14 schools that were in it.
So the year after, like, literally my freshman year of college was the high school that I went to, EP High School, scored the chance to be at least Rhode Island, I don't know, they made a big deal out of it, so I'm trying to remember, but they were the high school that premiered the Beauty and the Beast high school version that Disney finally allowed high schools to do. And it was such a huge deal that they were then invited to a regional theater competition to like show some of it. But I don't even think first of all, I wasn't there anymore. Like I said, I had graduated. I was in college, so I wasn't there. And then on top of that, I don't think it was like a competition thing from what I understood. It was literally just like a showcase of some kind. So like that's the closest that I ever got. And as you can tell, I'm like 6 steps removed, right?
Yeah, okay. But every school that we would go to, because as I only started doing theater tech in my junior year, and that's because the guy who had been doing it and was leaving was like, I want it to give it to somebody who will like know what they're doing. Because there were a bunch of people who wanted to do it, and I like did it reluctantly, but I like could deal with the insanity of the theater director, and like he demanded perfection from 13 to 18-year-old students who are still going to school and not getting the dispensation that like athletes get, right? You're not getting like, oh, you're in the theater program? Oh, well then it's all right if your paper's late. That didn't happen for us. So like I had breakdowns when I was like 17 years old because like I gotta work at Blockbuster, I gotta work at Radio Shack, and I gotta do this and all that. Like real panic attacks. Like, honestly, I can't believe I went in the theater, but we've already told that story. Anywho, any of the other schools that we went to that I then had to translate my shitty 70s board that, like, I designed the show on was, like, state-of-the-art ETC. You have 1,000 dimmers? We have 5,000. You have 100 dimmers? We have 5,000 dimmers. And I'm, like, overwhelmed because I'm looking at technology that, like, I have never set eyes on, and I have an hour to learn and program my show. So like, not the best memories, but like that's what every other school looked like. Meanwhile, my school looked like the theater that time forgot. So it is crazy to me, and not in like a negative way, that like you were envious of the theater program at Coventry High School, or at least that's how you made it sound. I don't want to put words in your mouth.
It's one of those things where I hear about the fact that you guys even owned your own equipment, and like we literally like for every show we did, and we only did one show a year, we would have to rent. We would have to get a guy that came in, and he came with all of his own equipment. He brought the board, he brought half of the lights, and then the other half were these old ones that we own that he somehow worked into his system. Like there was like there was so much that it was really cool that I got my hands on, and I recognized that not everybody even has that opportunity, right? And I used to think it was like so cool the like background that I was able to get going from EP, and then I would get to college and I would meet these people that like even beyond you and like and the guys from Coventry that were like getting that experience, people that were coming from places that were like arts high schools, just period, like that kind of thing. Like
we have a robot that hangs and focuses all of our lights.
Yeah,
you didn't have a robot that did that for you at your high school?
Or people that were like, oh yeah, I have full harness training to like go up in a cherry picker in order to like make these to do like focusing and stuff. And I was like, when did you get that? And they were like, they train everybody in my program since like sophomore year on. Is like, what? Like,
I remember when the principal of the high school was like, I need to see the lighting catwalk because they want to do a safety check, and I just want to make sure we're up to code. And I'm like, all right, cool. So we go up, and he's like, I could already tell you this is not up to code. I'm like, oh yeah, this was dangerous. And I was like around here like the Phantom of the Opera at 16 years old. That's when I started back here. Because like the ladder was coming out of the wall in places. Oh, and it's like, you just move fast past that one. He's just like, you should have never been allowed. I'm like, I understand that. But, you know, he wanted the show done. And we were winning. We were getting press. We were getting grants for the high school. So I just kind of did what I did. I remember I had to go up into that catwalk when I had my broken ankle. And, like, that was one of the scariest moments ever. Like, just being fearful that my cast would get caught.
We only ever had a kid get up into the catwalks once ever in my entire memory of high school, and that kid got suspended right quick because he was not supposed to be up there.
Yeah. I mean, I was told that I could do it, and I knew what I was doing up there, which was the big difference. But, like, I certainly wasn't supposed to do any of the electrical work that I did as a minor without any sort of electrical engineering training. Like, rewiring from dimmer to locations on the stage. Crazy
I've also
stuff.
been trying to figure out how we got here, and all I can think is, I mean, this is a scary story, so at least we're...
It's a pretty scary story. We started with Chipotle and then comparing it to Subway. And I brought up people that were around when we were doing theater in uni. So, like, it made sense.
Why were you talking about Chipotle? What was scary about that?
So it's not scary, is that Chipotle, so you place your order online, and then you don't have to go inside. You don't have to wait curbside for someone to bring it up. You just go to the drive-up window and you say, hi, I'm picking up an order for Devon, and they hand it to you. And it's fantastic. But the only
Devon, that's called takeout, and that's existed for a very long time.
Okay, but the only Chipotle that I had ever seen that had it was in Massachusetts. So then we looked today to see if any of the ones nearby have it, and the local Chipotle, the one that's like 10 minutes from the house, is like introducing Chipotle. So we did it, and it was awesome because I've been wanting to have the carne asada. I am such a sucker. You can totally pull me in with a limited edition item. I just have to say that.
Wild to me that they just repackaged takeout, which every restaurant ever
does. I know.
Had. And they're acting like we've decided to introduce the ability to pick up your food and take it home.
It's
Chipotle,
new to us.
I've been doing that to you for years.
It's new to Chipotle. If it's new to Chipotle, it's new to you.
Takeout is not new to Chipotle.
I know.
For the record.
But having to
you've
go
always
in.
been able to order for pickup. Order like that has always been a thing.
Yeah, but now you don't have to go inside. You can just stay in your car, like all of the famous YouTube food bloggers.
So the only new piece of the puzzle that they have introduced to this is you don't have to go inside and you don't have to go to the drive-thru. You can just park in a spot and then they'll bring it out to your car.
No, before it was you don't have to go inside. You could go inside or you could go to a spot. What they've added is the drive-thru lane. Like Chipotle was like,
I have driven through the drive-thru to pick up my food from Chipotle before.
Okay, but it's new to us, right? Our Chipotle was built before Utah was even founded. I don't know.
That is ridiculous. If you pulled up to the drive-thru and said, "Here, I'm here to pick up my order," and you gave them their name, unless it was like 100 bags, I do not think they would refuse you. Like it's
they didn't have a drive-thru. They didn't have a window. It's new. The window is new.
You've never had drive-thru Chipotle before?
I had drive-thru Chipotle whenever I was in Fall River. This is the first time I got it in Rhode Island. And they're adding it to all sorts of places. So that was the new thing. But then I had to get home, take my shower, and then...
My point is, Dev, is they're not adding anything. Is they've convinced you that they've created this new concept of a thing that they've pretty much been able to do all along.
Okay. Anywho, back to everything. I ran out of my Mexican Sprite, so I had to go to the downstairs fridge. And like all good second fridges, the only thing that's in there is alcohol. So I am now powered by a Baja Blast Hard Mountain Dew. You're welcome. I think we're back at the beginning. We're back where we started from.
I don't know why this was... I was talking about scary things going on and talking.
Well, it's pretty scary that I'm going to be drunk on this episode with my Baja Blast Hard Mountain Dew. 0 sugar, by the way.
Uh-huh.
I don't even know. Like, here's the deal.
I don't know, man. You brought us here, so you got to get us out.
Well, I'll get us out. It's been not a difficult week. It's been kind of a really sucky thing happened this week. That's what I'm going to say. And an even suckier thing than that also happened, but I don't want to talk about it in the show. I can't deal with conflicts in the Middle East right now. I don't have the bandwidth to handle it. So I will handle the thing on the bandwidth that I currently understand, and that is the fact that
because otherwise, we of all people would be able to figure that shit.
I mean, we could at least report on it and share our feelings, but I don't want to talk about it. It's crazy. Like Saturday Night Live last night opening up with a monologue from Pete Davidson about it was kind of crazy. Yeah. But that's a big thing that's going on. And it is having effects on creative endeavors all down the line, right? I've seen so many videos where I've just been talking to people and they're like, I don't see the point if this is what's going on in the world. But then, in our own private slice of hell, there's the fact that negotiations between SAG-AFTRA and AMTA, or AMPTP. Wow, I don't know why I couldn't get those words out. Association of Motion Pictures and Television Producers. Completely broke down. They seemed like they were going well, that they were getting there, and then on Wednesday, they just stopped.
Well, and according to Fran Drescher, at least the president of SAG-AFTRA, that has been the face of a lot of this stuff. She did an interview with AP News just to kind of clarify some stuff, and according to what she was saying, she's like, we were still negotiating. They came at us with one thing, we came back with another, and then they said, we're walking away. And she's like, okay, that's not how negotiations work, but all right. Because so to be clear, it seems like it was the motion picture side of things that they were like, yeah, no, we're not going to keep doing this. And they just gave up. And I don't know what the play is there.
Yeah. I mean, it was the producers. And what it looks like is, honestly, Sejin, I don't think we're seeing new stuff, new scripted stuff, until 2024. I mean, the stuff that's already in the can is going to happen. There are movies that are made and that are going to release and all of that. But I don't see a solution happening in a way that we have things before 2024.
Yeah.
Because
it's wild. I don't know. I mean, there's been rumors, we don't know the details of any of the actual contracts and stuff like that, but the rumors that are going around that for some reason the motion picture and producers side of things, they keep coming back with worse stuff every time, which is fucking wild. according to at least SAG-AFTRA, the idea that they tried to make it sound like this is a good deal because this is the same deal we were offering you before the strike even started, and blah blah blah. Which I don't understand how that makes it sound like a good deal, because then they went on strike, so obviously it wasn't a good deal.
We want better than that deal. That's why we stopped. Yeah.
But then on top of that, I think what it was they were trying to say this was as good a deal as we gave the writers, and SAG-AFTRA were just like, well, okay, they accepted it and we don't. That's not an argument for us. That doesn't make it a good deal for them necessarily.
Yeah,
that's what the writers were asking for had some very specific details in it that were important to them that don't necessarily translate to the acting side of things.
And the biggest thing about it that I've seen is the producers are standing firm on, we want to be able to scan your likeness and use it forever. That whole section of it, that
I mean, if you think about it in terms of what that would mean for them profit-wise and just industry-wise, what that means for their day-to-day, the ways in which that changes the entire fucking landscape of film and television production, right? Mm-hmm. Of course that's something that they're not budging on. That is such a... It is... The payoff on that is so immeasurable that I don't know how you convince them to stop, right? The only thing you can do against something that big, that number, the profit margin that they are looking at, possibly, right? The only thing that you can do is appeal to hearts, and we have realized from day one that they have none. So I do not know how SAG-AFTRA pulls this off, and I don't blame them for continuing to try. I have no fucking clue what they're going to be able to do to convince these guys to come back.
Right. The reason why I say that it felt like we recorded an episode on Wednesday. We recorded a banked episode, a time capsule. You'll get to listen to it eventually. And honestly, going into that time capsule, because of the fact that like it seemed like an actual negotiation was happening for the first time since SAG-AFTRA went on strike, I was like, the creative juices in my mind were like, all right, so how do we shift everything that we have planned for the rest of the year? What do we like make into time capsules? How do we do our very special episodes and all of that? Because I was already thinking about recording a time capsule. So my mind was there. And with everything looking like, oh yeah, no, this is it, like, it seems like we're making progress. It seems like we might be close to a resolve. Things might be getting like back to normal. I was so optimistic, and then to wake up the next day to, yeah, no, it fell through. And honestly, it just looks like both of them are very stubborn on this one point, and it's going to be who budges first. And honestly, I don't blame either side for not wanting to budge on those points.
I mean, I blame the producers for not wanting to budge because they're not considering the
humanity of it. Yeah,
right. Yeah, so I'm perfectly happy to sit back and wag my finger at those assholes. Don't worry.
Yeah, no, as much as I can.
The other thing is you mentioned that like we hadn't heard anything for literal months, and then all of a sudden we were hearing about negotiations. That was also something that Fran Drescher addressed in that Q&A. Is she said that they gave us like an overview of something months ago and then literally disappeared. Like they just have not been talking to SAG-AFTRA for months. And like, she doesn't say this in the interview. This is now me just kind of putting stuff over it. But considering how much we were hearing every day about their negotiations with the writers, it feels like that's where they were kind of focused, and to their own detriment, right? Like I can't understand why they were so focused on making the writers' strike kind of like getting that squared away that they just paid no attention to SAG-AFTRA, and now they seem like pissed that they have to take care of the SAG-AFTRA stuff. But it's just like they've been there just almost the entire time that the writers were there. I don't know why you thought this was gonna like. Did they forget that this other's like? Did they think that when they were negotiating one, they thought they were taking care of them both at the same time or something? Like, what the hell is this? Is this weird like reaction? But apparently, this is according specifically to Fran Drescher in that interview. She says like that they just disappeared from the table, and then they finally showed back up, and they felt good, and they came at them with this other counter offer like you do in negotiations, and the lawyers from the other side were just like, nah, fuck this, and walked away from the table.
Well, honestly, so first of all, when I say I can't blame any of those sides, yes, obviously I still think that Amtapa is the villain in this piece because of the lack of just humanity they're bringing to their side. But like you said, when you said profit-wise, if they were able to just have digital actors and make them do whatever they wanted, why wouldn't they want that? They can still be
you don't
evil.
Have to go looking. You also don't have to go looking for the next George Clooney when you've got George Clooney on retainer for the rest of eternity.
Or what if we combine George Clooney with Bradley Cooper? The technology is going to be there eventually, and then Brad Clooney and George Cooper are going to be the next big thing.
Yeah.
Amalgam actors. I just gave someone a terrible idea, and I'm so sorry to just all of humanity for that. But yeah, like that's why they're doing it. They're all about profit. So like when you say like they want to do the thing that's most profitable for them, like of course. But then when you say it looked like they were working with the writers and they weren't giving any thought to the actors, it's all about prioritizing your fires. And honestly, they weren't really paying much attention to the WGA fire until they realized, well, it could burn our money. And that whole thing happens when people are like, we're going to come back. And they're like, no, your writers are on strike. I know that you're under a different code, so you can do this. And your contract says you have to do it, but your writers are still on strike. So then when they realize, oh, we thought that like that was something in our pocket, that we can be profitable after the summer when all of the daytime talk shows come back, when all of these game shows come back. I mean, Jeopardy has been out there with its like Second Chance tournament and its Celebrity Jeopardy stuff, and there was that whole issue with it's crossing a picket line because the writers who write your clues are picketing the studio. So they had a difficult time finding contestants. Celebrity Jeopardy has been insanity with all of the actors who are like, I'm playing for SAG-AFTRA. All of my money will go into their fund to help pay these actors who are not able to work right now, and as a result are losing their homes. And I'm just like, good for you for doing that. Like it's been multiple people who are like, I'm playing for actor charities because you know what's going on. Like they can't say the words, but like they're all but using that platform to cite the fact that like it's not just like George Clooney who's affected by this. Right. I don't know why we decided on Clune Dog, but I think it's so I could say Clune Dog a little bit later down. So it's been like they didn't realize how big an issue the writers were until it started to really show up in their face. So then they negotiate that away, right? And as you know, Saturday Night Live is back. All of the nighttime shows are back. That's revenue in their pockets. So now they can drag their feet on finishing up with SAG-AFTRA, right? People are still watching them. They're still getting the numbers. They're still getting advertising money. It's just sick. The lack of humanity in it is just sick.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's what I mean is like, is when you really parse it out right now from out here, at least, it looks like the only thing left to appeal to in this conversation is that sense of humanity, and they have not shown an inkling of it since this whole thing started with either strike, with either union. Like it's just wild.
Yeah.
Yeah, man.
And all these other strikes that are happening around the country, auto workers and like it's happening, but it is depressing to live through, especially
we had a
as
pharmacist strike here in Utah. I don't know if it was nationwide, but we had a whole like warning the other day because there were going to be a few various companies around here that were not going to have pharmacists on Wednesday of this week, and it was like, okay, like make sure you pick up your drugs before or after because like this is they're going on strike this one day, and that was just wild to me. Like I had no idea it was happening, and here I was like having to like prep my week around it.
Yeah, healthcare workers again, like they're one of the largest healthcare worker strikes that's currently happening in the country. Mm-hmm. Like it's people are seeing that like they should fight for what they're worth as these companies make billions in profits and pay them pennies on the dollar. Like it's weirdly depressing. And like I don't want to do that, but because we recorded an episode on Wednesday, so I was still doing like prep for that, I've only had a couple of days, and all of the stuff I want to talk about is still considered struck work. Like a certain show came back and I have like written a dissertation to prepare people for it. And I can't share that anywhere. I can't wait till I can talk about it on the show. Like
I'm just sitting here waiting for the news to come down on gaming as well, because there's been so much going on with the video game stuff and finding out whether or not that's going to be included in all of this.
Microsoft bought Activision. Fuck Activision again, right? That'll mean something someday when you listen to that. But Microsoft has bought Activision, and like they're keeping Bobby Kotick on for a couple of years, like just to be there. Like what the fuck?
I mean, at some point, royalty just gets a check, right?
Yeah.
Like that feels like what's going on there.
That's exactly
like,
what's
we're not
going
to give him any responsibilities, but we're going to pay him a little bit of money, and then we'll never have to hear from him again. Is the hope? But we'll see.
So I mean, that whole thing's going on. Gaming is a whole other kettle of fish that like I don't want to look at. And then like, what else can I talk about? I can talk about the 90 minutes I had to spend in Best Buy because. Like, first of all, Best Buy is a million little Radio Shacks. I didn't realize that until I was stuck in a Best Buy for 90 minutes.
Well, and it's going to become even more that. Did you hear all their news about how they're just going to start phasing out all media? You know, right now the big thing is going to be movies and television, but down the line we're probably going to be looking at gaming going as well. Music is already gone, right? Like, I don't know the last time I saw a music section.
They haven't had music. They have one aisle of, like, special limited editions that's, like, 60% vinyl, and then the other stuff is like CDs that they are special there. And sometimes you're buying a physical album that then has a physical album case that then has a digital code for you to download the album, but like so you can't have something physical to like put in your shelf and show off that you own it to your friends. It's crazy. But yeah, so Best Buy's going in this weird direction, but like sitting there and it just like, this reminds me of when I worked at Radio Shack. And that's not a nice thing that I'm saying there. Because Radio Shack really felt like it was a bunch of people who knew one thing, but then we were each asked to cover the parts that we weren't 100% in. So, like, it's people walking between sections. It's like, oh, I don't really know anything about cell phones. You'll have to wait until somebody who does. And I'm like, then why are you in the cell phone section? Like, what? Why are you in mobile? Go stay in your section. Because, of course, people are going to, like, zombies reach out and grab for anybody in a blue shirt to help them.
The sad part is because staffing in these kinds of places nowadays, and department stores in general, and this is true even in, like, grocery stores and stuff now, is, like, staffing is seen first as a security deterrent than they are there to help customers nowadays.
True.
If a store had the ability to run staffless entirely, and people could just go in, grab their shit, hit the self-checkout on the way out, and leave, you know that companies would take advantage of that. But the only reason that they need to keep staff around anymore is to make sure that shit's not getting stolen, right? And I'm not even saying that this is, like, actually, like, a huge issue, because, like, I have these weird feelings about some of this stuff that over the last few years, like, a lot of companies, and I don't know, maybe this is not happening so far east, but out here and definitely in California, like, you're hearing more and more and more stories. And notice, I really want to make this clear that I don't know the validity of any of this shit, because it sure doesn't really feel like it, but according to the way that everybody talks about this, more and more stores are dealing with things like theft issues and stuff like that. And so they're using those stories as an excuse to do things like the security out here at, like, Kroger Smiths is crazy now. Every single door has a metal, like, not metal detector, but like a metal entrance that, like, you need to wait for that to open after you're in the store, which, you know, you're just standing there. And part of what they're doing is they're just making sure that every person that walks in gets their face onto a camera, standing still, no questions asked. Like, and it's this wild thing that you have to do in every entrance. And then throughout the store, the number of things that have, like, security tags on them now is just stupid. And the number of things that have been put behind glass that you need to call somebody is stupid. And then all of the self-checkouts are, for all of this, the point of the self-checkout where you don't need to staff them, it's fucking nuts how many of them have to have a guy at the end watching your stuff come down. Or even straight up, I had a self-checkout the other day where somebody was bagging my stuff for me, and I was like, what are you doing at this point? Like, you haven't eliminated the staff at all. Why am I doing this self-checkout then? But, like, and I'm not one of those people that, like, feels offended I have to check my own shit out. I prefer it. I like not being able to talk to people. But if you're gonna put a guy at the end of the self-checkout at the end who's gonna bag my stuff out and still talk to me, you've eliminated the reason that I use self-checkout.
I found myself in the Target in Seekonk because I was killing time while my father was in a medical appointment, and the self-checkout line was so long. I couldn't believe it. I honestly, like, it went deep into the store, and they have, like, 7 things, and then you're still, like, 20 people back, and it's 8 in the morning. Like,
it's become like a meme, because Target specifically, I think one of their biggest issues is, especially at the self-checkout, the number of non-checkout bullshit that comes up on the screen. Like, they ask you if you're a Target store member, do you want to sign up for the credit card? Do you want to donate to whatever various charity they may or may not actually be giving their money to? Like the number of bullshit on the screen when I just want to go in and buy a fucking pack of gum, right, is ridiculous. And I think that's what leads to it, is Target more than any other place has that kind of bullshit going on.
But then, like, the reason I bring this up is, like, you're like, I don't want to interact with people. I see that it's lined, so I go, like, well, I'm going to go look at the dollar store section, and suppose it's just standing here. And as I walked away from it, a Target employee followed me and then bumped into me, like, hard, like, to get my attention. And I'm like, what the frick was that? And I'm like, are you okay? Like, excuse me? She goes, no. I'm just like, oh, okay. Like, but it just really felt like, oh, he went towards them, saw the line, and then he moved away. Like, and we got to stop that. Like, what are you doing? I felt so like that was the wrong way to handle that.
Yeah. No, and so you mentioned that, like, it feels like nobody in these stores anymore are, like, actually there to help anybody, and it's because they're not. They are there solely to deter theft and to keep an eye on people. It's all security. That's the only reason people exist in stores anymore. And it sucks, because, like, that's just, like, it just ruins the brick and mortar experience to the point where, like,
why would I ever want to go back?
Right. I'm just gonna do this shit online, right? And it's like it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. It's this idea that, like, people don't want to come to stores anymore. The only people that come to stores are the people that want to come and take shit. And it's like, well, when you make the store going experience such bullshit, yeah, man. Like, that
return process. So I had tried. I'm gonna tell the story. I'll TLDR it as best I can. But I bought the new iPhone. I wasn't going to upgrade my iPhone until they added a USB-C port to it. They did that. So I put in a pre-order, and it wasn't going to be available until October. So, like, why am I pre-ordering it if I'm not going to be able to get it day one? Whatever. From Apple, it wasn't going to be ready until December. So I'll take the lesser of the two evils, right? I get the phone.
True? Is that still happening?
I don't know if this is the case, but I was like, when I did it, because I didn't do it like the first day, and because I wanted to, not just get the base model. I would like a little bit more storage because I've had 256 before and filled it. So, like, I'd like to get that, nor I'd like to get the better battery or, like, little things like that,
There's
right?
also something to be said about not being the earliest adopter of things.
Right.
Even if it is something more proven like an iPhone, you still don't want to be the first in line for
Exactly.
the next one.
And that's why I'm like, I can wait till October, and then if it sucks, and let's be honest, the iPhone 15, we're not really like a tech show, but it falls under the everything banner, so we can talk about it. The iPhone 15, not really impressive people with its like heat issues and the jerry rig everything where he just snapped the back of it, like the safety glass on the back. It really wasn't looking like a phone that I wanted from the beginning. But then, Apple addressed it and they put out, so I'm like, I'm still going to try to grab it. I grab it. It came in a day early, so I'm already like feeling pretty excited about the experience. Nice. That like, I get it a day early. And so I'll have all night to figure it out, and then I'll have it for the weekend, and like I have to go to medical appointments with my father and all of these other things that I have to do. I go to activate it, and you can't just buy an unlocked phone anymore, like from anywhere. Like you need to tell them what service it's going to be on, which I don't love that. I wish that if I gave them like all of the money up front. So it just like, I've been saving up for it specifically for this, right? And they're like, you need to tell us what plan it's on. So I do that. So then I go to try to activate it, and it says to me, this phone is currently active under another carrier. Please contact that carrier before continuing. This is a new phone. It's not been activated by anybody, except for what they told me, the company that I'm supposed to be using it for.
Right.
So I contact the company, right? And I go, this is the thing that I'm getting. I did. They're like, oh, well, there must be an issue with it because we're showing that it cannot be activated on our service because it is on another carrier. So I'm like, okay. They're like, so, I mean, that problem, if you just got it new, you should contact Apple. And I contacted Apple, and they're like, oh, that's just probably hardware, software issue somewhere down the line. You just got to return that to Best Buy. Like, that's what you have to do. That's what needs to happen. You have a defective item. So I go to Best Buy to return it, and they're like, oh, okay. And I'm like, yeah. So they're like, we need to have the mobile manager come over. So he's looking at it, and he's like, all right, well, we need to deactivate it. And I go, that's the problem. I can't activate it. So there's not going to be a way. There's nothing to deactivate. It is still the phone as you sold it to me, 4 days ago. And he goes, we don't sell them unlocked anymore. I go, well, I went to Verizon, and Verizon said is active with another carrier. So I contacted Apple because that should not be the case. And Apple said, just return it. They're like, well, it has to be activated. So I go, it's really not, though. Like, I can't prove something isn't real to you.
How do you, well, also try starting the phone, motherfucker. What does it say to you?
Yeah.
Like
right. So all this is like, well, you'll need to meet with somebody in mobile. So I'd already been in there for like 20 minutes because there was a long line of people returning. And again, no staff because you talked about that. I go over and sit in mobile for another 50 minutes. So I'm in the store for 70 minutes before someone comes over and says, sorry for the wait. I'm just coming back from break. I'm going to run to the restroom. If you want to take a seat at my station, we'll handle it. Sit at the station. He goes, all right. So because it's showing as active, we need to deactivate it. I go, it's not active. That is the problem. I have talked to the two people who would deal with that issue, and both of them said just return the phone is defective. And at this point, I just want to return it to you and get my money back because I'm done with everything here. I need to reevaluate what I'm going to do. And you don't even have the phone on the shelf. So I'm not going to wait for you to get another one and just hold on to my money while you do that. Let's just give me my money back and be done. So he goes, so I'm going to have to look at your account. He brings up the account. He goes, I'm not seeing it on here. And I go, right, because it won't activate. So he goes, oh, then we can just return it. And I go, that's why I told them 8 minutes ago. Please, like, why did you just waste my time? You're not going to get me to buy more things there.
Man.
But it was just like all it took was someone to look at my account and to see, oh, yeah, your phone's not on there. And I'm like, right, and I can't add it. But you guys were supposed to do that. It's a defective item.
Yeah.
But it really did open my eyes up to just what is going on in brick and mortar. Because I haven't really been
better.
using it.
It's not any better as far as online goes. Because I mean, like, I had my own little horror story with my phone just last week when I'm in the Google system and all that, right? And I think I talked about at some point I had gotten a new phone sometime over the last 6 months, and there was some weird shit with it because the way that we got it and it was added into the family plan, it was almost as if they thought that it was like a children's phone because everything seemed to require my girlfriend's information to like do anything all the time. And anytime I would go to an app like say YouTube, it would be signed in under her and I'd have to switch over to me like all the time, and we could never quite figure out why. It just assumed she was the owner of the phone, and the only thing I can assume is that I was not on as like an owner of the phone. I must have been on as just a user of some type, and like the safety precautions in place to make sure that like you would do with like if you bought your kid a phone, right?
Exactly.
Like it feels like that's what happened. We bought a phone on a family plan and I somehow got labeled the child of the family. But that phone had an accident that I can't quite really explain other than it fell hard. And so it basically shattered, right? So I cannot use that phone. Screen does not work. I cannot do anything with it. But I still have an old phone around. The only reason I had gotten the new phone is just because my phone was very old and was like starting to slow down in a couple of ways, like doesn't even charge really well and stuff like that, but still works. Like I was tolerating it enough, but thought I should upgrade this. But no, the old new phone's crashed, so I go back to the old phone. I switch everything over, switch the SIM card over, start to do the activation process, and it says we need to verify that you are who you are. And everything nowadays is set up with two-step verification. And with Google, the second step for my verification, at least, was all phone-based. And I was like, okay, but I can't use two-step verification because the thing that I would use to two-step verify is this phone that I can't get into. So I have to go through this shit and tell all of this stuff time and time again. Like I can't do that. I can't do that. I can't do that. So eventually it goes, okay, well, we can remove two-step verification, but that is a like person by person reviewed process. I had to email in and say I need to remove two-step verification. Then I had to wait 48 to 72 hours for them to look over my case, quote unquote, and decide whether or not they were going to do that. And like it's one of those things where they could just say, no, we're not gonna. And for anybody that's ever dealt with like Alphabet and Google and like more to the point, like YouTube is I think the more common thing where people have to deal with this, where if you are just putting yourself out there and saying, hey, you guys made a mistake, can you correct this? And then they're just like, okay, we'll decide if we're going to even address this. 9 times out of 10, they come back and like, nah, we're not gonna. Like, sorry, your YouTube channel is just toast now. Or like, sorry, yeah, we demonetized your shit and you're just not gonna get that back. And like, no explanation. And so like, I have all that in my head and I'm now sitting there for like 48 to 72 hours waiting to hear back whether or not Google's gonna just decide that I am who I say I am and remove two-step verification from my account so that I can restart my old phone. Because there's just no way for me to get on there. It's like fucking wild. I was like, I can't be the only person in the world that has ever misplaced their phone, broken their phone to the point where you can't use it. This why is this process not any simpler, and why does it feel like you reserve the right to just say to me at some point, sorry, no, you're not who you say you are? Because that two-step verification is not just on my phone. I was using it when I was working. We were using two-step to sign into our computers. I used two-step verification to get into some of my banking stuff. Like, I used that two-step verification for a lot of shit. And it only occurred to me a day or two after my phone broke that I was like, shit, I can't get into anything right now. And then it's up to Google whether or not I ever will again.
Dale's been dealing with that with one of her email accounts. She's been having that same problem where she's like, all the ways that I can access it are locked behind this email account, and you can when you're not letting me fix that. And I get that. And then I'll one step further, because the new iPhones require eSIM, I had to finally go to electronic SIM from a card. And when I wanted to go back to my old phone, I'm like, well, I still have that SIM card. I'm just going to activate the SIM card. This phone is not compatible with SIM cards. Well, that's funny, because before I told you to go eSIM with the new phone, you were running off of a SIM card. So stop giving me fucking just blanket statements about what this phone can or cannot do. It is frustrating. I'm sorry that you went through that. I'm sorry that you're good now though, right? Like it's just
Well, so I've got the old phone up and going. I need to get a new phone, but one of the things that I want to make sure we do right this time is I don't want to get
you don't want to be a
in,
baby
like,
phone.
This weird used account, right? User account, right?
Yeah.
I want to. So now I need to figure out. Does that mean that like I need to order the phone separate from the family and then add it to the family? That's a pain in the ass, but like I could do that. Like it's not impossible. It's
maybe
so
you can do that, or maybe they'll be like, "This was not purchased as part of this family plan. Go kick rocks."
So, I mean, maybe, but like that. So the reason I'm even in the family plan to begin with is because I was on my own Google account and the fam was on their Google account. And one day when I was like, if I added to yours, I could cut my phone bill in half. And so we added my old phone to the family plan, and that's the phone that I currently am using. So like that seems to be the workaround, is that you activate the phone as its own user and then add it to the family, as opposed to ordering a phone under the family account. And so basically I am the primary owner on this phone still, so it doesn't autofill all of my girlfriend's passwords and shit every time I go to a website.
Here's my prediction. I don't want this to happen, but if you do it, my prediction is this number has already been associated with this family plan before. Please either create a new line or use a different phone number that has not been associated with this plan. Like, from my brief time working with cellular, like, I'm so fearful that that's the message you're going to get. Because, like, we'll let you fuck into this one time to save money on our plans, but we're not going to let you do it again. Like, that's what I see all the time, where it's like, oh, yeah, if you added a new line, there'd be no problem. But because you want to continue using the phone number you've been using since you were 18 years old, then we're going to have a difficult time here.
Part of me thinks that would not be the worst thing in the world, doing a full wash of my phone number. The number of assholes out there that I would never have to hear from again would go down significantly.
This is where we announce the end of the Say Report, I guess. Kidding, of course.
Yeah, because I do record the entire thing off of this phone in that email address and that phone number.
If I change my phone number, Devon will never have to get in touch with me again. I'll never have to record another episode. There's a scary story. I'd like to go out on my own terms, Legion. Not because you changed your cell phone number. Gosh. So I guess we had more to talk about than I thought. Because, like, we've just been, annoyed consumers over the last couple of weeks. But I think it's
this is what the show turns into when we don't have movies and television to talk about.
Right? Is that like there's no joy in our lives? No, I got some joy in my life, but again, I can't talk about it till next episode. But 2 thumbs up, Sejim. He said very, very cryptically as he burped up Chipotle. Excuse me.
Well, I
think it's task time. What do you want to do first? What do you want to do
second? To roll into a task.
Was that?
I said I thought you were going to try and use this all to roll into a task.
No, I'm just being straight out. It's later.
Messages about shit we can't talk about. So
yeah,
great.
Right. Cryptic messages about things we can't talk about. I guess then I wanted to see where you wanted to go first, but we could talk about. I mean, you're going to be disappointed. I feel with how I approached this task, and I'm honestly a little disappointed about how I approached this task. Because Sejan wanted me to talk about the Mystery Flesh Pit National Park. And
so the first thing is like I gave you 2 specific questions as like
yes.
Like what is it, right? And
yes.
Why should I care, right? So talk to me.
Here's the thing. On paper, what it is basically a new urban legend that was created using the internet in 2019. Mm-hmm. And I love it. On the one level, I love it. On the other hand, and the reason why I was having such a difficult time approaching this is the fact that we're 4 years removed from when it started, so it feels like I missed the boat on it. It feels like I don't get to be a contributor. I don't get to be part of the phenomenon. I'm only ever going to be an observer. It's sort of interesting. I saw this, and this is just how my mind works. Somebody said, now that all of the games are released and the saga is over, can we all admit that Monkey Island 2 LeChuck's Revenge is the worst Monkey Island game? That's something that I saw this week. And honestly, I would very much disagree with that. And as someone who doesn't really like LeChuck's Revenge, but at least LeChuck's Revenge was the other game that was made like by Ron Gilbert and was kind of his singular vision. Everything after it, like Curse and Escape and then the Tales series, all of those games, part of the contributors were people who were fans of those other games. So it becomes, what we've talked about before, licensed fan fiction, right?
Right.
Because it's not just the singular vision of the creator, it's other people who are in there adding what they would like Guybrush Threepwood to do, or what they would think LeChuck would do in this situation. So it kind of, it's not, purebred anymore. It becomes a hybrid. And
yeah, I mean, like, you got to be really careful, though, with the idea of the quote unquote, the criticism that gets thrown out there, licensed fan fiction, right? Because like I hear that a lot in specifically in like the world of comics, right? Because that happens all the time. You get people on to write, for Deadpool that have been reading Deadpool for 25 years now. And so like they've got some real like feelings about things they want to do with that character. And there's a danger, right? There is a danger there that they get so caught up in their own wants and needs about what they've always wanted to see the character do and become that the character itself kind of gets away from this wider vision that everybody has for it, right? Like that's essentially the what you're saying when you say licensed fan fiction, is it feels like this thing has become so much more about what the writer wanted to see the character do than what the character maybe actually might do in those situations, and it becomes a little hard for somebody that doesn't have that same vision to come along for the ride, right? You got to be careful with a thing like that, right? Because that's something that I feel gets that criticism gets thrown around so much at things that it's kind of lost some of its oomph.
Yeah,
for me.
and I don't disagree with that, but it's the mentality that I come to it, right? Like if I were there in 2019 on the Reddit contributing the ideas that, there's like a set of lungs at this section of the Mystery Flesh Pit National Park that were discovered in 2004. And we know they're lungs because some of the air sacs still fill and empty. And we wonder if the creature could be breathing or it's just an involuntary reflex due to the nature of how the body is buried within the national park. Like, and how, El Nino is affecting it this year. Like, there was this one hand where you gave it to me and I found it and I'm like, oh my God, I want to create a bunch of lore for this. But like, at the base, it's like, it feels like the time for creating lore for this has passed.
So I want to challenge that for a lot of reasons, not least of which because one of the big things about Mystery Flesh Pit is that it has gotten such a wide kind of following and things that people are making video games about it on Steam. People are writing like entries on SCP websites about it. Like it is still very much a thing that people are adding to and parsing out and stuff like that on a pretty regular basis. Like I appreciate the idea that like coming to it 4 years later feels like you're late to the game for sure. I can't deny those feelings. You feel like it is like coming to a game franchise on like the third one and listening to people being like super wild about it. One of my favorite examples of that for me is Dark Souls, and that whole series is kind of that way. That series had such a avid fan base that by the time I got to it, I really felt like really turned off about trying to like get into it and have never really quite broken myself out of those feelings.
And right? I gotta be honest, we weren't the most inviting fan base to begin with.
Right.
Let alone being someone trying to join.
In that same vein,
yeah.
But interestingly, with a different result, is The Witcher, right? Because The Witcher, first of all, was like a series of books, and people really loved that. And then the first Witcher game came out, and it had some really weird criticisms because a lot of people just weren't really sure what that series was. Now you look at what that series has become, and like a very different kind of feeling, right? Like there's a lot of people that are very much, and I am very much into things like Witcher 3 is just this phenomenal experience. and I don't feel like I was like I don't feel like it was really hard for me to find my way into it, despite there being two other games and a whole bunch of other like fan like stuff going on with it and all that. So like there's it's a toss up that it but you can definitely see where you would feel like that. But I feel like the community for something like Mystery Flesh Pit, much like I mentioned SCP earlier, like the that whole like online compendium of people like writing and contributing to like this giant thing that people are just super fans of now, to the point where like people are making, like I said, like making careers out of writing about this thing. You know, there are books that people are writing, comics, there are web comics and video games. It's just wild the ways in which this has sparked so much from people and continues to.
Yeah. And I mean, and that's cool, but like, it was one of these things that as immediately as I'm like, oh, this is exciting. It's a cool thing that this happened. And then as I kept going down and like seeing the lore that is like clearly established and agreed upon by everybody, I'm like, it's very difficult for me to get over the hump of this feels like something that already exists. Is there room for me to join it?
Yeah,
Which,
well,
so,
and more than some of these other kind of online creepypasta ARG style things that have kind of really popped up, because there is an ARG element in things like you know you watch certain videos and they lead you to certain websites and then you get more information and stuff like that. There's like that whole side to it as well. But I feel like this has a lot more rules, as it were. So, like I said, I can totally understand that feeling, but like I would really encourage you that if you've got something you want to say about this stuff, to really add to it, because that's one of the best parts about this thing.
cool. I mean, I guess the thing was, I'm like, I don't want to be like a skeptic dick about it. I don't want to shut it down. It's very cool. I love building little worlds and universes with my spare time, and it would probably be nice to do that with collaborators. I mean, I've written a couple of film scripts and things like that. I have you, and we've built. I mean, I love when like stupid ideas that we came up for things in college end up being kind of the plot of a film or TV show, because it's like, oh, that was a good idea. We were just too lazy to actually do anything with it. Or I like when it's an idea that we came up with that turns out like some 13th century play that's the exact topic. Because it's like, it's okay we didn't do it, right? There are no new ideas.
Yeah. So,
so
before
that,
we go too much further,
yeah.
like we should probably clarify for people what it is that we're talking about. Like,
Yeah. Well, yeah. So let's stop. So Sejin asked me, again, just do it, to tell us what is and why should you care about Mystery Flesh Pit National Park. So the Mystery Flesh Pit National Park, it came about in Reddit when somebody photoshopped a picture of, it's a South African open pit mine, to have a stock photo of like flesh, like just in the ground. There was an amorphous blob of flesh.
Right.
And,
So the
yeah.
hole that was the strip mine was altered in a way to make it look like it was living flesh around the hole. Super fucked up, super creepy. And then like, you know, the world building that starts around it. You can kind of start to imagine the ways that people can talk about this
Yeah.
thing.
And then he took that original photo and he made it look like what a national park poster would look like. So something for like Yosemite or Yellowstone. Like it looked in that same style. Like, come on, visit the Mystery Flesh Pit National Park. We have
Yes.
corn dogs for the kids.
Right, right. So this is a thing that like in the fiction of the world, this is a thing that exists that people are so aware of that they've turned it into a tourist attraction. And then in a really interesting detail, the idea that the government then steps in, keeps it still open as a tourist attraction, but folds it into the national park system, so that there's all sorts of things around like the ways in which it is supported and the ways people interact with it and what can and can't be done with it, all because it is now this like government-owned entity, but it is open to the public, right? This is not something the government is keeping a secret, which is kind of the way that I think these stories tend to like to go, is they really like to lean into like the government cover-up conspiracy side of things, but there's really not much of that in like the main story. There's plenty of that in the side stuff that people create,
Yeah.
but like there's in the main concept of what this thing is, this is not something that's being hidden from the world. It's something very much being celebrated by the world.
Yeah, it's one of those things where because the government couldn't step in before the park had been commercialized as a tourist trap, their method of containing it was saying, well, we're making it a national park site. So,
Right.
all that commercialization, that now goes into Uncle Sam's pockets. And we have rangers who are on site should anything happen with the enormous subterranean animal called the Permian Basin superorganism. We can be in charge of it. So like the tale goes that it all started in the 1970s while drilling for oil. They discovered the Permian Basin superorganism, and the park operated for years and years, for 30 years until 2007, when a vague incident took the lives of over 750 people. Which is the kind of thing that gets people to stand up and say, we should probably do something about this Permian Basin superorganism that's over in Odessa, Texas.
Right. Yeah. And like, so the stuff that has kind of sprung from it, and this kind of gets into the why should we care conversation, right? So I'm gonna jump in with you on this though, because I'll tell you why I care. Is like the best part about this, and I think what becomes kind of the creepiest thing about it, which makes it stick, unlike a lot of the other like internet urban legend stuff that kind of comes out, is that they really lean into the normalcy of so much of this stuff. The signage that they put out, the bumper stickers, the t-shirts, and the merch that you would have gotten in like the 1980s for going to this place, like that stuff existing. It's not a new thing in terms of like, you know, like you could always buy like Raccoon City merch and things like that, like if you wanted. But
I have an RPD coffee cup. It's one of my favorite coffee cups.
right. Like that idea of like we want to take this normal thing and apply it to this creepy aspect, and that makes the whole thing even creepier. Like it's not that they are inventing this kind of horror. They are so good at it, right? Like there are so many elements that are just like wild and weird. Like there's like drawn maps of the town that this thing exists in, and it's just like also up in the corner, don't forget, is this giant gaping hole in the ground that may or may not swallow us all. And it's just like, what like the closest, man, I'm trying to do this without talking about like movies or television, but like it is that idea that that this creepy thing has just become so normal that it is just a part of our everyday life. And as an outside observer, you come to that and you're just like, this isn't normal. What the fuck is wrong with you people? Right? And you don't know, you know, you start to question your own sense of sanity and things like that in that regard. And in that way, it is almost Lovecraftian, right?
Yeah. The transparency, honestly, the transparency of the whole thing, that like, no, this is a real thing that happened to 750 people died here 16 years ago, but it's still there. We still got to deal with it, where we still have, you know, government funded expeditions into the park to try to determine more information about it. I think that's like, it's not just to feel like this is already an established world, so like what gives me the right to want to add to it, but it's also like an intimidation factor, because everybody kind of already knows the rules of how the game is supposed to be played. And if you don't play by those rules, like you're not part of the fun. I mean, why I think you care about something like Mystery Flesh Pit National Park as a thing that I have talked to people about it, because I was like toying with like, do I come on the show and say, this is what it is? I can't believe, like, I've been pouring through the internet and I found this and I read this paper by this character that I would have created. And I'm like, or at the same time, just like approaching it as this outsider to this world that was able to be sprung up. And then why you should care about it is that within the last 4 years, through everything that we have gone through, we have still had creative people who have able to come together and create something like the Mystery Flesh Pit National Park. Like, it's almost not a meme. It's kind of like a movement in this weird way.
Right, and again, you see that in these other corners of the internet with all of these kinds of creepypasta elements, and like where people want to kind of, you know, there is an element of one-upmanship. Like some people want to kind of always outdo what other people are doing, and they think they've got something to bring to the table. But some of it is also like people that like just world building, you know. I mean, like we live in the golden age of D&D right now, right? And I think this is another element of that, where people just are finding that creative ability right now, and the ability to share it in a way that, you know, it's kind of like the promise that we always kind of wanted from the internet, this ability to create and share our stuff and have it be celebrated. And this is one of the few instances of it actually working, right? Yeah.
So it proves a concept that we all want to believe in. that we can all come together to create something, not necessarily beautiful, but certainly creative and like unique. Which also, I mean, there is a tabletop RPG that's currently being developed. That's with Gonza Games. A book is being written, but the video game has actually been scrapped due to fan feedback and internal disputes. So I don't know if another one has come up.
There's a few different indie games and stuff out there.
That
but
I'm sure are
talking
based
about
in
some
it. Yeah,
major one.
This is the major one that like was a Kickstarter, had been getting it, and then it was canceled before it ended just because like we're not gonna do it. Like it's not working.
Kickstarters. Yeah. I mean, that's one of the things that's not to get too deep into some Kickstarter stuff because we've done that plenty of times, but that is always one of the risks that you're taking that I find to be one of the more understandable risks when you're doing something like kickstarting a video game. I will send somebody $5, but I understand that this $5 could go to them, working for 3 months to figure out that it's just not going to happen. You just kind of accept that that's part of the deal with that.
Yeah. I don't know. I just had a Kickstarter come in. I'm not ready to talk about it because I've only opened one part of it. And in fact, it was supposed to be 2 sections and I only got the first part. The second part is delayed because of QC issues. So I don't feel 100% yet, even though I have some proof of concept in hand. So it is that. But I mean, I thank you for making me look into Mystery Fleshpit National Park. No thank you for like the weird existential creative crisis that you put me through. The
scariest part of it all.
Yeah, the scariest part of it all is like, am I actually good at this? But I will say, like, getting the creative juices started with this, I was able to assist like Zach over at Board with Friends. He had some questions about the stuff that he's doing with his YouTube channel, and we had just a very good creative kind of powwow about ideas to like strengthen that. So, I mean, something like Mystery Fleshpit National Park at its base and why you should care about it, like, it is a proof of something creative coming into existence and somehow maintaining itself. So, like, if that can do it, your little stupid ideas that you might have that, like, you're afraid to work on or share with other people, don't feel that way, right? Like, embrace them, try to build them. Because if we can have the Permian Basin superorganism with its abyssal copepod and amorphous shame and Venice shamble, like, just out there in the world as a thing that, like, hundreds of thousands of people are aware of...
Yeah.
Even though they are nothing more than a couple of bits of like imagination from shared groupthink, like whatever you're thinking on, like maybe put some time into it, maybe share it with a friend and see what they go. Like it's an inspiration, Mystery Fleshpit National Park, and it's unfortunately something that inspires me, but I feel like I miss the boat to visit there. Even though I'm pretty sure it's all
there's always another Siren Head coming down the line. There's always another Slender Man. There's always another Mystery Fleshpit.
Yeah.
There's some good stuff out there though. Like check out, I don't think Boddington does Mystery Fleshpit. He does a bunch of other stuff. But there's like guys on YouTube that are doing videos on this stuff still. And like I said, there's indie developers out there just doing like silly like games, like little horror experiences and stuff with it. But yeah, just something to introduce everybody to here as we are in the Halloween season. This is a thing that's out in the world right now. I wouldn't be surprised if in the next like 5 years we see some indie studio or sci-fi or somebody try and do like a Mystery Fleshpit movie or something.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they have to be making movies for that to happen, but yeah, if they ever do come back, I hope
sometime in the next 5 years they make movies again.
Yeah, me too. Right? I don't know. I mean, we can't even talk about like the reveal about Disney Plus and their way of making television. Put a pin in that one, people, because when we pull it, it's gonna be a doozy. I can't. It's just been, everything's been crazy on that side. And you know what you do in a crazy world? Sometimes you embrace it. And that brings us to task numero dos.
Here's the thing, Devon. I couldn't embrace it. My stomach literally could not embrace it.
That's fine.
We're not gonna dwell on this because this is not made for podcasting, but I have never thrown up so quick in my life from a food. I have I have definitely had my fair share of weird stuff in the world and things that I've tried that did not agree with me. And I'm not saying this is the first time I've ever thrown up, period, or any of that.
I've
But
been
the
there for a
time
couple of them,
from
Sage.
consumption to my body needs to remove this from my body immediately was the quickest it had ever been with Buffalo Pepsi specifically. I got some things to say about Buffalo Coke after that, but Buffalo Pepsi was technically the prompt.
Jeez. So, okay, so what I wanted to do was to try the taste sensation soda creation that's been sweeping the nation, Buffalo Pepsi. It got such a following that, like, Pepsi themselves put out a recipe on how to do it. I'm kind of, like, flim-flammed by just how much rhyming I just did. Completely, that came from nowhere, Siegen. That was a real
I need
wonder.
you to, yeah, congratulations, Dr. Seuss. Yeah, I'm
Yes.
still mad at you for what you did to my
Well,
body.
I did it to myself too, and
So, like, just to reiterate though, like this is not a this came from a certain individual, right? Like
hold
this,
on. I'm gonna get the full story up because I want to
because
make sure that we
that's some of the
ruin this
wildest
version.
parts of all of this is that like there's like a nugget of like verisimilitude to this whole concept that I'm not okay with. Now having partaken in the meme, I have questions.
All right, so I mean, it's not really a meme; it's just a thing. So it was Josh Allen of the Buffalo.
It's just a
Bills.
thing being said, being kind of blown up on social media right now that people really shouldn't take seriously.
No, you
right?
really should. Like it's, but here's the thing. So
I think that might be a meme, Dev.
I don't know. It's. I don't know. I'd rather talk about this than Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce any day. That's just the thing I'm gonna say. I'm
There's
tired
nothing to talk
of that.
about. Two people that are in love are supporting each other, and the world can't seem to fucking handle that. That's it. That's the end of that story. Move on.
Personally, I think it's like one of those movies where like we'll pretend we're together and we'll both reap the benefits. That's how I've decided to approach.
That's a gross way to look at the world, Devin. If you think that there's actually people out there that will behave that way.
I don't know, Siege, and sometimes it just drives me crazy. I just can't sleep. Anywho, I think that's a song, right? It's a song reference. I'm okay. I'm in the clear. No, it's just that's how I've decided to frame it. But your way is much nicer, right? That they are two people who like each other. But it's not like we've seen anything that indicates that they're actually dating. Now we're talking about it. Fuck me for even saying the names. We might be saying those names a lot, though, going forward. But that's another topic for when we can talk about struck work. But Josh Allen, the quarterback of the Buffalo Bills, was seen out at a sports bar eating, chicken wings. Like imagine that's what you do in Buffalo, New York. I've been to Buffalo, New York exactly one time. We stopped at a buffet on the way to Toronto for a band trip. And like that's you don't want to go to a buffet in Buffalo. You want to go to like a sports bar and have actual buffalo wings.
Buffalo.
Malkovich. Anywho, so he's out eating and he is seen picking up the wing sauce bottle and pouring it into his glass of Pepsi, stirring it up and drinking it. And everybody was like, and my favorite thing, the reason why I thought it was worth talking about and actually tasking on the show was someone on social media being like, please don't get sick, Josh Allen. We need you for the game tomorrow.
That might be, having tasted the actual concoction now, that might actually be the most sincere part of this entire story.
I know, that's definitely where the big pumpkin goes, right? That's where the sincerity lies. Because it is one of those situations where, that doesn't sound like it'd be good for your body. But then,
I mean, look, do what you want to yourself, but there's a game tomorrow, man. You have teammates that depend on you.
Yeah, you're the quarterback. You're not like the nickelback. You're not a fullback. You're the guy. You're the general. So it is one of those situations where that happened, and then Pepsi put it up. So, I've had Buffalo chicken wing soda before. I imagine you have as well, right? Have you ever done that?
What? What?
No,
what are you talking about?
Okay. So things like Rocket Pop, where they have all the crazy sodas.
Okay, yeah.
They like
So you're
all.
talking about like a Burt's Every Flavored Beans thing here, right? Like when Jelly Belly's like this one tastes like vomit. Like you've had a buffalo wing flavored soda
I
that
have a
exists in the
buffalo wing
world.
flavored soda that I gotta like. I think it
That's
was at a
that's
Rocket Pop. Yeah.
ridiculous, and I have no interest in it. But I can acknowledge that that is probably a thing that exists in the world. Sure,
Yeah.
yeah.
So because I've had that, I'm like, how freaking bad can it be to take a little bit of buffalo sauce and dump it into 12 ounces of Pepsi? And then going one step beyond, because with the Say report, I wanted to try it with Coke as well. Especially I live in a Coke home, right? We love Coca-Cola at the Deca House. So we did it. And Sejin's reaction, I have to say, I'm the only person in the house who was able to finish a full 12 ounces of either. The rest was dumped out. It was a rather situation of, I'm afraid that as soon as I put this in my body, it's going to want to come out of my body. No Deckers vomited. So thank you, Sejin, for being the only one who vomited. Did you force anyone else to do this, or did you do this like under cover of darkness? My family was interested. I will say this. They're like,
I straight up no. I straight up okay. So I had a process and I planned for me. I had to do it when nobody else would be home. That was like a huge deal for me. I had to make sure that the house was empty for me to go on this experimental journey, because I think I kind of knew that there was going to be a chance that there was going to be an early off ramp that I didn't want anybody else to witness. So I went out and I picked up my Pepsi, picked up my Coke, and I got this buffalo sauce.
What'd you do for
got a
buffalo
blue
sauce?
cheese.
Did you use something in special, or
No, just Frank's. I like
just
that
Frank's
is
buffalo?
like
That's fine. That's fine.
yeah. I wanted to do this as clean as possible. No specialty sauces or anything. Except that it did occur to me as I was grabbing the buffalo sauce. I was like, now there's a big difference in the grand scheme of things in texture and taste between a buffalo sauce and like a Texas Pete's or something, right? Or a Cholula, or is it like a vinegary based like hot sauce, right? And I said to myself, maybe there's something to this idea, like spicy Coke. I was trying to find any handhold I could to be with you on this, man. I really was. So I also did grab a thing of Texas Pete's too. So I had some just like some more like wetter vinegary sauce. I had a thicker Frank's buffalo sauce, and I had my Coke, and I had my Pepsi, and I had the fucking blue cheese. And I couldn't figure out how I wanted to do this first. I was like, do I just do it? Do I just do it? Just do the full shebang first and then work my way backwards? And I feel like I was like, maybe that's not the best way to go about it. But that's what I did. I did the very first one, and I didn't put blue cheese on the first one. I wanted to do it purely in the way that you were talking about in this story of this weird dude in this bar who just decided to just start throwing some hot sauce into his, specifically buffalo sauce, into his Coke or his Pepsi. And so that's what I did, and that was the one that got me. The second I tasted that, I was like, this is not going to happen. It took me a little bit of time to get back on that horse. And I did, because I really wanted to know if there was something to the idea of, well, I don't like Pepsi and it is a sweeter thing, and I don't necessarily know if Buffalo is the right way. So I was like, I started with Pepsi Buffalo, it then became Coke and vinegar hot sauce, then it became vinegar and Buffalo, and then finally Pepsi and the vinegar hot sauce. And I ended up not being able to put the blue cheese on any of them.
Okay, thank God, because I was not doing that. I'm not even someone who's bothered by blue cheese. The fact, like, rim with blue cheese optional, like, that's the memeiest part of it to me.
Right.
Is like, no, I'm not doing that.
I will say that a vinegar-based hot sauce in some Coke basically just made spicy Coke. It was the least offensive.
That's nice to hear. First of all, that random dude at a bar, he makes $39.8 million a year. He's not just some random dude. He got some clout behind him.
I don't think that clout has to transfer, right? Like, you could be the greatest soccer player in the world, but if you sit down at a blackjack table, people don't have to instantly respect you, right? Like you can't. So that dude can play as great as he wants to play and be paid a fair compensation for that, if that's what we want to call it. But at the end of the day, that doesn't mean I have to trust him on his palate.
Right. But it's just really like some random guy. It's like some random guy who like plays in front of millions of people every week and makes millions of dollars.
If I were sitting in that bar and I saw him do that, I wouldn't clock him as a celebrity. I would clock him as a psychopath.
Yeah, right? Like, they'd be like, oh, I'm locking my car doors when I leave here. I don't want. I'm checking the
As for the
back
check, we
seat.
need to go. Close your tab. We need to leave.
We will pick up McDonald's on the way home. I know we haven't gotten to eat yet. An emergency has come up, and the emergency is that dude just poured buffalo sauce into his drink, and he's gonna kill again. Yeah. So, all right. So spicy Coke, that feels good. Because I will say this: we use Sweet Baby Ray's. Love Sweet Baby Ray's buffalo sauce, and we did it in the Pepsi first because that's the one that was there. And I gotta say, in the Pepsi, it kind of worked for me. I don't want to like be that, but the flavor profile of what Pepsi is mixing with the spice of the buffalo sauce, it enhanced the drink.
What was your technique though? Like how did you pour it? Because I think also part of the issue was like I went ice first, Pepsi on top, and then I splashed my buffalo sauce in. So I ended up with like these like big goopies because specifically the Franks didn't mix with the Pepsi. Like so like I just had these like big like goopy pockets of buffalo sauce and then it would just be surrounded by fizzy Pepsi. And by the time I was getting to that, I wasn't really tasting the Pepsi. It was just like super sweet buffalo sauce, but then had like a fizzy element to it. So like I had all of these things going into my stomach. Too much sugar, too much fizz, and too much spice all at the same time. I don't know why I'm surprised that my stomach was like, no, we're not playing this game.
No, not doing that. So yeah, it's what I did. First of all, we went over to the dollar store. We laid down $5. We bought 4 new, fresh 12-ounce pint glasses, like you would get in the bar. Right? That was task 1 to do this.
Because your mom was like, you're not doing this in my good dinner.
Nope, no. I'm saying I'm not doing this in your good wear. It's worth buying new ones. Plus, now we have a set of 4 glasses for when we want to taste test things, right? You got to always think logistically for the next time. And honestly, my mother, super happy that we now have undecorated pint glasses because she's a bit of a shutterbug on the social medias. So now if she makes like a dark and stormy or any of these other crazy drink concoctions, she'll be able to get cleaner lines when she takes a photo of them. These are real words that were said to me this morning.
Okay.
So just sharing it. So and then we put in the glass. We bought 2 liters because everybody's going to try it. So I like gingerly measured out 12 ounces using a measuring cup, and then I got a tablespoon, filled the tablespoon, and as it says in the recipe, gently added it. But what you didn't do, Siege, is step 3, which is stir and garnish with celery. I'm not going to garnish it with celery. That's mean to the celery. But I did stir it up. I did take a bartender mixing spoon and I mixed them up so that there was more of a cohesion between the 2 ingredients. So if you just had because those blobs, my mother said it looks like a dragon. You should not put that in your body. That was her response after I gently added the first amount into one, is that is a dragon inside of that just wants to murder you.
Thing is like I'm not opposed to like there's so much about this that I can definitely get on board for in terms of the idea of mixed drinks. And as I said, I eventually got to a drink that I could at least stomach with the Coke and hot sauce, right?
Yeah.
So like removing the creamy element of the buffalo, and I cannot like really like iterate this enough, but like Pepsi is so over the top gross to me in like it is like if you think about what people that don't drink soda like soda is all the time, it's to me it's like you must have only drank Pepsi in your life, because I get that at the level with Pepsi, but not with there's so many great sodas in the world that are not that are not like the obnoxiously oversweet, especially if you get into more like locally made stuff or even house made stuff, like depending on like where you're going to get your shit. There is good soda in the world, just like there's good anything in the world, as long as it is made with care and love and not like overproduced bullshit. And so like I'm down on the idea that there are parts of this drink, this concoction that can work, right?
Yeah.
And I realized that this is super close to like a Bloody Mary concoction that I've been making recently. I have a variant on my perfect Bloody Mary. For anybody that's been listening to the show for a while knows that I've like got this like weird thing where I'm always kind of working on this. But I found a new liquor out here that comes from a winery that is specifically based around bees and honey, so they do a lot of like meads and stuff like that.
Nice.
But they've got a they've got a liqueur that they sell that is a jalapeno garlic like liquor, and they call it Dragon Piss. So I've been making a Dragon Piss Bloody Mary for a couple of weeks now that like I fucking adore, and it's got a lot of these similar elements that you're seeing in this drink here in terms of like the spice and the sugar and the sweetness and all that. So like it's not that I can't wrap my head around that. It is specifically something about the mix of specifically Pepsi and specifically buffalo sauce. And I think that like it is like the creamy, buttery nature of buffalo
Oh
sauce
yeah.
versus a hot sauce that really does me in. That whole thing just doesn't work for me.
Honestly, adding buffalo sauce made Pepsi palatable for me. That's my way. I will say this though. A couple of weeks ago, I was gifted a pack of decaffeinated Pepsi, like caffeine-free Pepsi, and that really worked for me. I would have that like how people have coffee late at night so they calm themselves down. A decaffeinated Pepsi really got me sleepy in a way that I was surprised I had never experienced before. But I'm not really generally a Pepsi
You just unlocked
fan.
like a core memory for me about specifically like caffeine. Remember when they first introduced a Pepsi Max that had like the extra caffeine in it?
Yeah, and the ginseng.
Yeah, yeah. Well, so I have this like really deep burned in memory in my brain from when I was in high school, and one of our biology teachers was also the coach for the football team, right?
Yeah.
And he had a very unique way of getting his guys revved up. That he would buy them all a 16-ounce bottle of Pepsi Max, and they had to all together as a team chug half of it, then shake them all as hard as possible to remove all of the carbonation from the other half. And then once they felt they had adequately removed the carbonation from the other half, chug the other half. And this was a pregame ritual that he had the entire team do all the fucking time.
So I guess he wasn't a chemistry science teacher.
No, he was a biology teacher.
There you go.
I don't quite, yeah, yeah. And he was just all about like, he's like, we're gonna get this energy into you, but something about specifically the carbonation. We don't want the whole bottle. I don't want to smell you all farting on the bus for the next 20 minutes. I guess was it. Like,
I don't want you all floating away. I almost talked about
yeah.
a movie. Yeah, so yeah, I get that. Quick thing though. Dragon Piss, one word or two?
I believe it's two. I
Okay.
believe it's two.
Thank you. Just wanted to love that
Yeah,
name.
what's wild is it's really close to a rum because it's a beet sugar based
Ooh,
liqueur,
wow.
and then they add the garlic and jalapeno to it. Undrinkable on its own. I tried it the first time we got it just to do like a shot just to see kind of where it was flavor profile wise, because you want to know before you add it to stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Completely undrinkable on its own. However, great in things like Bloody Marys, phenomenal for cooking with. We made a pasta alla vodka with it the other night, and that it was just like fucking banger because it just has these deep like it's like putting vanilla extract in a cookie. Like
Yeah.
it just the way that it just completely changes everything and elevates it was just awesome.
Yeah. I mean, this is a guy, by the way, people who drinks like straight Midori. So like, just understand that with the undrinkable thing. I'm very interested to try it pure, and don't doubt that it will be awful. But it is one of those things that like that just the idea of a jalapeno garlic liqueur. Oh, that it's got me like kind of shaking with excitement. But yeah, so that made Pepsi palatable for me. Adding the buffalo sauce, adding the buffalo sauce to the Coke is like, man, I just ruined this Coca-Cola.
Yeah.
That's how I felt. And it was one thing where like my mother refused to do the Pepsi because I don't like Pepsi anyway. So why would I try Pepsi with that? But then she tried it and she's like, no, it does, right? Like it balances out what the problem is as a Coke drinker with drinking Pepsi. Like something about the chemicals present and the ingredients in the buffalo sauce really did sort of level it out. And you got like that.
Spices. I mean, you get more spice mixed in with the sweetness, and it really cuts the sweetness of the Pepsi.
Yeah.
Again, I can appreciate what it's trying to do. It just didn't do it for me.
It just didn't do it for you. And then the Coke just ruined. And I was the only one who was able to drink two of them. Like one of each. Everybody else threw them down the drain. I'm glad I did it. I'll probably never do it again.
I'm glad that your family finally invested in that Devon's own personal outhouse outside, because there's no fucking way they let you in their bathroom.
I will say this. We put on some entertainment, And usually I don't need to go to the restroom during entertainment. I can wait till we're between things. I had to go during it, and after it, they ended up pausing what we were watching and being like, you need to light a match. And I'm like, all I did was, like, pee. All I did was pee. And they're like, yeah, it smells like buffalo sauce, though. So, like, it was an experience. So I thank you for going down that journey for me. I am sorry that you vomited, but I'm very happy that you didn't rim your glass with blue cheese.
Like, it wasn't. Yes, no, I did not rim my glass with blue cheese, and like I did not want to dwell on this much, but it wasn't one of those like evacuate everything in the system things. It was legitimately.
It wasn't White Castle in New Jersey.
Yeah, but it was legitimately just one of those, whatever that just was is poison, and poison can't be in you. And then the second it was out of my system, my body was like, good, the poison has been evacuated, we are done. It was just one of those immediate, just like, nope, not that. And then as soon as it was out, I was fine. Like, I was like, okay.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's what you're supposed to do. If you drink something poisonous, induce vomiting is the solution.
I've only ever really had that ever happen to me once before in my life, and that was when I was mixing way too many different types of alcohol in my system, and I finally put one in my system that my body was like, that's one too many. We're gonna get rid of that. And then once it was out, it was like, okay, we're but no more drinking tonight. Or if it is, it's all sparkly water from here on. All right, gotcha.
Been there, see the gincident. And the other one, like food-wise, is like why I don't go near it is chicken salad. And I know that, like, I don't know what happened to that, but the first time I ever ate chicken salad, immediate evacuation. And like, I don't know what didn't agree with me about you, but you're never going in my body again. Well, that's fun. That's it. It's task time, right? Because we're on a schedule, so we should try to end this one up. What do you got for the class this week, Sejin?
I mean, I hope this isn't cheating, but I'm thinking we're both going to get our hands on it. We got to talk about Mario Wonder next week, and I want to make sure it's one of our tasks so that when we inevitably spend half the episode talking about it, we're not eating into our task time.
I agree. I think that's a fair task to put on the table is to play some Mario Wonder, right?
Get your hands on that Mario Wonder, and let's see what we could talk about next week. Yeah,
it should be fun, right? I'm not biting my tongue right now at all. But I will share my task. It's semi-related to that. So it's going to be a big gaming episode next week. Apologies. Sweet. Hopefully some other things will happen that we can talk about in like the front half before we get to the tasks. You know what comes out 4 days before Super Mario Brothers Wonder?
The new Sonic?
Sonic Superstars comes out.
Yeah, I was looking at that and I was thinking, ooh, that's going to sting.
That's gotta hurt, right? That's gotta hurt.
Well, especially when we'll talk more about this next week, but some of the stuff about the release schedule for Wonder and the ways in which it was kind of like floaty and the idea that it landed right after Sonic comes out feels a little pointed, but yeah, we'll talk more about it.
So I'm not gonna make you go out and buy a new game, right? Certainly not a game that when you're planning on that. But I'd like you to play a Sonic game this week. Your favorite Sonic game, just a Sonic game that's available to you. I'd like you to spend a little bit of time, since the Mario game doesn't come out until Friday, right? So you're going to have some time in that lead up. Go back and play a Sonic game and just share your thoughts on the character.
All right, Mario Sonic at the Olympic Games, it is.
I knew he'd find some sort of workaround, and I can't fault him for it. At least he didn't say Super Smash Brothers Ultimate.
This is awesome because we have talked. I mean, I think even recently we have talked about the idea that like Sonic is not something that's in our wheelhouse, right? Like we are clearly aware of the character. I've played Sonic games before, but you'll note that we very often will talk about Mario long before we ever talk about Sonic, right? So yeah, I'm totally down. This is awesome.
So it's with our tasks next week, it's going to be Sonic versus Mario. Nostalgia and our history edition. Don't quote me on that being.
I mean, as nostalgic as it is, we are literally doing it because there are 2 new games coming out for them this week
in the same week. It just
yeah.
I don't even know. It's crazy. It's insane to me. Cool. So that's excellent. Those are the tasks. If you have anything to say, if you went out there and because of us tried Buffalo Pepsi or Buffalo Coke, let us know. Send an email to thesayreport@gmail.com. Also, if you have suggestions for tasks or just want to share experiences with any of the tasks that we've put out for you, for each other, and also by extension to you, that's the best place to send that to thesayreport@gmail.com. Again, if it's specifically for me or for Sejin, just denote that in the subject line, and we will make sure it gets to the right party so that we can address it here on the show. Anything else you want to add, Siege, before we send this one away?
No, man. I mean, I hope everybody's getting ready for the spooky season. Things have been ramping up out here in Utah. People have got their 12-foot skeletons out and all that shit. And so, I just hope everybody's got some good plans for the rest of the season.
Yeah, that's true. So, like, get ready for Halloween. It's a few short weeks. We're at the halfway point, right? This is going to drop on the 16th. There's 15 days to Halloween. Ooh, this is halfway to Halloween report. Ooh. All right. So that's everything. Thank you so much for listening. And William, please bring us home.
Thank you for listening to the Say Report with your host Devon Decker and Stephen Serwick. Please follow the guys on Twitter and Facebook by searching for The Say Report. And you can always subscribe on your podcast channel so this is delivered straight to you and you can enjoy it every week. With apologies to your mother, we'll see you next time.